Hi everybody, it's me again, ASMR Classic 1, I think. Yeah, I ought to kind of really memorise that. So, thank you so much for your comments last week about our introduction to this Mary Shelley, the 1818 text of Frankenstein. As I mentioned last time, my interest in it is that I adapted really and directed a play called The Birth of Frankenstein at the Edinburgh International Festival a couple of years ago. I made it about Mary Shelley, a kind of journey really. So I thought, thank you for the very kind comments, that's very kind of you. So I thought, encouraged as I was, we might have a little dip into the original text. And of course, one or two people have pointed out that Frankenstein in the 50s, 40s, 30s, the films in Hollywood, Frankenstein is the monster. But in fact, Frankenstein is the man that creates the monster. Excuse me, I'm sure you're aware of that. But I thought we might have a little look through. It's quite late here in London, and I've got to get to the pub, haven't I? Yeah. But I did think I'd sort this with you first. Move my Fringe cup out of the way, as I say, from whichever year that was. The Edinburgh Fringe Festival. I showed this last time, and I'm sorry it's nearly always mucky because I've been in my little writing room here for a few hours doing all sorts of stuff. Let's get that out of the way as well, the coaster. A bit mucky actually, oh, I'm sorry about that. Oh, I think, anyway, it might be the covering that's come off here. And the sad sort of anorak that. How's this? In fact, I wasn't intending to show you this, but I'll show you how sad I am. This is my wallet. It's kind of full of stuff. I mean, fortunately not much cash, but it's full of cards and membership things. And yeah, I got this from the Royal Shakespeare Company in Stratford-upon-Avon, surprise, surprise. And my partner always goes, oh, hide it. But every time I do show it to people on the occasions when I get a credit card out or something like that, and I apologise for it, most people think it's quite cool. So I don't know what you think. Maybe we should try and sell them. As I think I've mentioned before, basically, the genesis of this is a small, not-for-profit theatre company in England, in London at the moment, in London and Birmingham. And we're hoping if we get to 1,000 subscribers, I think we might be able to make some money out of YouTube. That's the hope anyway, which we can then put into our productions, and particularly I like the idea of creating sort of ASMR drama. So, but that'll of course will involve people more than just me, and not everyone's stupid enough as I am to do stuff for nothing. So watch this space, or and if you haven't subscribed, then please do. As I say, I think if you get to 1,000, that's when all of a sudden you're able to get some money for the ads that are seen. I think you still see the ads anyway, it's just that we don't get anything for it. But again, you probably know more about how YouTube works than I do. So there you go. Othello's got a bit rubbed out. I keep thinking I haven't had this for long, but I've probably had it about 5 years. It doesn't work very often. I mean, actually I say that it's only because I tend to use Apple Pay on my watch and stuff, you know. Henry the Fourth, Part 1. Shakespeare. That's not a play. Hamlet. The Scottish play. If you're in theatre. I mean, it's not so much in modern theatre, but there is a tradition that it's bad luck to say that name. And I do know some older actors that if they said that word, they'd have to kind of turn around 3 times and spit. Or so actually, I'm not an actor, but I've been on stages when people have actually done. I've done a bit of acting, but I'm not brave enough to be an actor. So that's the Scottish play. there's a new version of that in the West End in London at the moment, which seems to be getting good reviews. I might try and get to see it, because I mean, in a sense, Much Ado About Nothing, it's in the title, isn't it? The Merchant of Venice. How like a falling publican I am. If you cut me, do I not bleed? It's very, I suppose, is it contagious is the wrong word at the moment. I actually saw a production of this, oh blimey, it must have been, well, yes, it was years ago, and Dustin Hoffman played Shylock, the lead character in The Merchant of Venice. It was a stage production in London when I was still living in the Midlands at the time, and it was directed, I do believe, by Sir Peter Hall, who put Dustin through his Shakespeare tropes. I've directed a few Shakespeares, and I'm not smart as, I'm not a sir. And I do tend to believe that if you can get the modern emotion right, what they call the iambic pentameter, the pattern of the speech, which goes once more and do the beat different once more, or close the wallet with our English dead, those sort of things. I actually think it comes if you get the emotion right, that pentameter, because the way Shakespeare wrote his plays will come anyway, if he wrote them. There's a movement that says he didn't. Who knows? But it was, Sir Peter Hall was very technical. And I actually did a one-person version of Henry V, called Henry V, The Line of England, and we did it in Birmingham. And then he went to Edinburgh, and then it actually played at the Waterside Theatre in Stratford-upon-Avon. And Sir Peter Hall apparently came and saw it, and apparently liked it. So he obviously didn't tell me off for not getting the meter right. And then, of course, William Shakespeare's The Tempest. So, an anorak's wallet. I won't show you inside, because obviously this is the internet, isn't it? I say there's nothing really much in there. Well, there is a lot, but it's mainly all junk and stuff. Anyway, I didn't really mean to go off on one there, but why not? So, here we are, Mary Shelley, Frankenstein, the 1818 text, as I mentioned last time. I actually literally just saw this in our local bookshop in London. I tend to hang around Notting Hill. You may know Notting Hill from the films and stuff that have been made. And also Chiswick, which is quite a nice, arguably the most literary area in London, according to the Chiswick Book Festival organiser. Because there are a lot of writers who lived in Chiswick, and I guess still do. But this is, as we mentioned last time, the Penguin Classic version. I thought I'd just share a little bit of the original. Excuse me. That's my little thing that I quite like. They're not paying me or anything like that, but I was slightly involved with that. The London Literary Book Crawl. So if you're ever in London, I think, does that work on? I don't know if that works on here, but anyway. So, this is the start. Let's have a little dive into this, shall we, for a few minutes. I hope you find it fairly relaxing as well, even though the subject matter may be not appeasing. Frankenstein, or the modern Prometheus, in 3 volumes. And I love this quote from Paradise Lost. I don't know where I got it from, but I actually started the theatre production with this, a voiceover doing this. Did I request thee, maker, from thy clay to mould me, man? Did I solicit thee from darkness to promote me? And a quote, of course, from Paradise Lost. London, of course, printed for Lackington Hughes, Harding, Mayvot and Jones. Wow, that's a name, isn't it? Finsbury Square. Of course, Finsbury Square is still there. Well, I'm not sure there are any publishers there. And of course, it was 1818. So, I quite like this, actually. To William Godwin, author of Political Justice, Caleb Williams, etc. These volumes are respectfully inscribed by the author. Of course, William Godwin was Mary Shelley's dad, father. So, let's get into the preface here. The event on which this fiction is founded has been supposed by Dr. Darwin and some of the psychological writers of Germany as not of impossible occurrence. I shall not be supposed as according the remotest degree of serious faith to such an imagination, yet in assuming it as the basis of a work of fancy, I have not considered myself as merely weaving a series of supernatural terrors. The event on which the interest of the story depends is exempt from the disadvantages of a mere tale of spectres or enchantment. It was recommended by the novelty of the situations which it develops, and however impossible as a physical fact, affords a point of view to the imagination for the delineation of human passions more comprehensive and commanding than any which the ordinary relations of existing events can yield. Wow, that's a sentence. I have thus endeavoured to preserve the truth of the elementary principles of human nature, while I have not scrupled to innovate upon their combinations. The Iliad, the tragic poetry of Greece, Shakespeare in The Tempest and Midsummer Night's Dream, and most especially Milton in Paradise Lost, conform to this rule, and the most humble novelist who seek to confer or receive amusement from his labours may without presumption apply to prose fiction a license, or rather a rule, from the adoption of which so many exquisite combinations of human feeling have resulted in the highest, I think that's supposed to be the biggest specimens of poetry. The circumstances on which my story rests was suggested in casual conversation. It was commenced partly as a source of amusement and partly as an expedient for exercising any untried resources of mind. Other motives were mingled with these. As the work proceeded, I am no means indifferent to the manner in which whatever moral tendencies exist in the sentiments or characters it contains shall affect the reader, yet my chief concern in this respect has been limited to the avoiding the enervating effects of the novels of the present day, and to the exhibition of the ambience of domestic affection, and the excellence of universal virtue. That's a word, isn't it? The opinions which naturally spring from the character and situation of the hero are by no means to be conceived as existing always in my own conviction, nor is any inference justly to be drawn from the following pages as prejudicing any philosophical doctrine of whatever kind. It is a subject also of additional interest to the author that this story was begun in the majestic region where the scene is principally laid, and in society which cannot cease to be regretted. I passed the summer of 1816 in the environs of Geneva. The season was cold and rainy, and in the evenings we crowded around a blazing wood fire, and occasionally amused ourselves with some German stories of ghosts which happened to fall into our hands. These tales excited us in a playful desire of imitation. Two other friends, a tale from the pen of one of whom would be far more acceptable to the public than anything I can ever hope to produce, and myself, agreed to write each a story founded on some supernatural occurrence. The weather, however, suddenly became serene, and my two friends left me on a journey among the Alps, and lost in the magnificent scenes which they present all memory of their ghostly visions. The following tale is the only one which has been completed. And of course that's true, because they did go to Geneva. And you might remember I mentioned last week that when this first came out, no one knew it was a woman. I'm not sure if it was completely anonymous or am I thinking of Jane Eyre, but I know I think it was this, because there was quite a lot of outrage. And of course, the three of them, Polly, Dolly, and Polly Erin, 17. Who knows? You will rejoice to hear that no disaster has accompanied the commencement of an enterprise which you have regarded with such evil forebodings. I arrived here yesterday, and my first task is to assure my dear sister of my welfare and increasing confidence in the success of my undertaking. I am already far north of London, and as I walk in the streets of Petersburg, I feel a cold northern breeze play upon my cheeks which braces my nerves and fills me with delight. Do you understand this feeling? This breeze, which has travelled from the regions towards which I am advancing, gives me a foretaste of these icy climes. Inspirited by this wind of promise, my daydreams become more fervent and vivid. I try in vain to be persuaded that the pole is the seat of frost and desolation. It ever presents itself to my imagination as the region of beauty and delight. There, Margaret, the sun is forever visible, its broad disk just skirting the horizon and diffusing a perpetual splendour. There, for with your leave, my sister, I will put some trust in preceding navigators. There snow and frost are banished, and sailing over a calm sea, we may be wafted to a lord, suppressing in wonders and in beauty every region hitherto discovered on the habitable globe. Its productions and features may be without example, as the phenomena of the heavenly bodies undoubtedly are in those undiscovered solitudes. What may not be expected in a country of eternal light? I may there discover the wondrous power which attracts the needle, and may regulate 1,000 celestial observations that require only this voyage to render their seeming eccentricities content for ever. I shall satiate my ardent curiosity with this sight of a part of the world never before visited, and may tread a land never before imprinted by the foot of man. These are my enticements, and they are sufficient to conquer all fear of danger or death, and to induce me to commence this laborious voyage with the joy a child feels when he embarks in a little boat with his holiday mates on an expedition of discovery up his native river. But supposing all these conjectures to be false, you cannot contest the inestimable benefit by which I shall confer on all mankind to the last generation, by discovering a passage near the pole to those countries to reach which at present so many months are requisite, or by ascertaining the secret of the magnet which, if at all possible, can only be effected by an undertaking such as mine. So an ambitious start. And again, as you can see, it's all kind of in the male sense, isn't it? No idea, no hint that she was a woman. But because of time, I shall leave it there. If you'd like to hear any more, then please do let me know. As I mentioned at the start, we're trying to get to 1,000 subscribers. So maybe that will happen. And again, I hope you found it fairly relaxing. As I often mention, I discovered ASMR when I had COVID, so thank you, terrible disease. And now, every night, that's my chosen way of getting off to sleep. John Butler, and if you know ASMR, you may know John Butler has a lot to answer for. But I'll leave it here. Again, thank you so much for staying with me, if you stayed with me this long. And thanks again for your very kind comments. Have a nice, relaxing life.